581-6858 today. Spectrum Business, made to work.
Even the mighty might not see it coming. It's prediabetes, and it captures 1 in 3 adults. But you can escape. Take the 1-minute prediabetes risk test to know where you stand and prevent or delay type 2 diabetes. Be your own hero on smartphones everywhere at doihaveprediabetes.org.
I'm Dean Meminger. Here's your Spectrum News in 90. A teen accused of carrying out a deadly school shooting and his father appear in court separately Friday morning. The 14-year-old was arraigned on 4 counts of murder and is expected to be tried as an adult. His father, Colin Gray, was arraigned on 14 charges, including 2 counts of second-degree murder.
I'm not trying to send a message. I'm just trying to use the tools in my arsenal to prosecute people for the crimes they commit.
A legal win for Donald Trump. A judge has delayed sentencing in his New York hush money case until after the election. Judge Juan Merchan says he made the decision in part to avoid any appearance of affecting the outcome of the presidential race. But the former president spent part of Friday in court for another case, fighting to overturn the verdict in his E. Jean Carroll sex abuse lawsuit.
I got sued essentially for defamation because I'm denying a story where I'm right. I should be suing her for defamation.
Vice President Kamala Harris says she raised over $360 million in August in her first full month as a candidate. Trump's team says they brought in $130 million over that same time period. The 2024 race for the White House is on track to be the most expensive election in history. Those are your headlines. Now your weather on the ones.
Hey everybody, I'm meteorologist Nate Harrington. As we close out the first full week of September and enter the weekend, it's more of the same. More heavy rainfalls, an area of low pressure plagues the Gulf Coast states, and more extreme heat across the west. But a long cold front extending from the Great Lakes all the way into Texas brings some fall-like weather for folks across the eastern portion of the lower 48. Extreme heat, though, will continue for the weekend, but a pattern change is coming. We discuss that and have a look at the tropics, too, coming up in 10 minutes.
Welcome to The Big Deal. I'm Errol Lewis, national political anchor at Spectrum News. Every week we look at some of the biggest issues shaping our nation and the road to the White House. With less than 2 months to go until November 5th, a significant legal victory has been handed down to former President Donald Trump. The judge overseeing Trump's New York criminal hush money case has postponed his sentencing to November 26th. That's after Election Day, and it's a big deal this week and the focus of tonight's program. Meanwhile, the August fundraising totals are in, and Vice President Kamala Harris is holding on to a substantial cash advantage. She and the Democrats raked in $361 million compared to Trump and the Republican Party's $130 million. And this weekend, Harris and Trump are preparing for their first presidential debate coming up in a few days. We'll bring you a preview later in the show. But first, here's a look at some of the key moments from the race this week.
These cases are disgraceful. Now, they're brought, for the most part, in front of very hostile areas where Republicans get 3 or 4%, like downtown Manhattan.
And if he wins, you can be sure Donald Trump will go further. And he will sign a national abortion ban.
Change that direction and once again build the greatest economy in the history of the world, which we had during the Trump administration.
And we have some hard work then ahead of us. But here's the beauty of us in this room. We like hard work.
Joining me now with some political analysis are two top commentators. Tim Boyum is political anchor for Spectrum News 1 in Raleigh, North Carolina. Josh Robin is Spectrum News chief national political reporter, and he joins me here in studio. And Josh, it has been a busy legal week for Donald Trump. His sentencing in the New York hush money case is now not going to happen until after the election. When it comes to that federal election interference case, the one based in D.C., the judge has not set a new trial date, but said that Trump's campaign schedule is, quote, not relevant. She's going to just move forward regardless of what it means for him politically. Are these court cases a net plus for Trump, or will it cost him votes, do you think?
Well, I think that there's no way that there's going to be a trial in that federal election interference, the federal January 6th case, excuse me. But there's still going to be potentially some damaging information that comes out in court proceedings as they try to navigate the new Supreme Court landscape. I think that right now it's going to be marginally a net negative anytime it's in the news, because he's already won the nomination. All of these court cases were helpful for winning the Republican nomination. I think more new information about January 6th, and particularly now that he's saying that he actually lost the 2020 election by a whisker, and yet he still encouraged all of these people to continue fighting it. That, I think, on the margins is going to be helpful for Kamala Harris.
Okay, now, Tim, meanwhile, North Carolina was supposed to be the first state to begin mailing out 2024 ballots to some voters starting today, in fact, but it's now on hold. Walk us through what's happening there.
Yeah, so you might remember earlier this summer, RFK Jr. was fighting to get on the ballot in many states, including North Carolina, and he succeeded. But now that he drops off, he wants to have his name off the ballot. But they just have started doing that. And North Carolina, because of, as you mentioned, was supposed to start mailing them out today, has had millions of ballots printed already. And so the state board said, look, it's too late. It's going to cost way too much money. We have to move forward. And there's some regulations that require us to do that. Well, RFK took it to court, and he lost yesterday, meaning that the Board of Elections could have moved forward today, but they gave them 24 hours to appeal. They did. An appeals court judge said, don't send out the ballots yet. We're going to let the appeals process go through. And so now we don't know what's going to happen. And the Board of Elections says that if it moves forward and goes to the end here, it could be at least a couple weeks to get these new ballots printed if that was the case. And there's federal regulations coming up here. September 21st deadline to get them out as well. So it's kind of a mess right now. And by the way, it could cost the state, several $100,000 to reprint all these ballots. So It is on pause. The good thing, I guess, is that they will still have, 45 days or so to get absentee ballots in by mail.
Okay, so we know you'll keep an eye on that. And Tim, let's talk about these August fundraising totals. Kamala Harris raked in $361 million last month, which is nearly triple the $130 million that Donald Trump raised. The Harris campaign now has more than $400 million on hand, and we're 2 months out from the race. Now, money's only an advantage if you use it wisely. How and where do you think the Harris campaign plans to spend this haul?
I mean, I don't think there's any question they're going to use a lot of it on ads. If for some reason it ends up being 3-1, she can help, kind of put that image out there about what she thinks Donald Trump is, rather than vice versa on ads. We've seen that in the North Carolina gubernatorial race. So much money spent by the Democrat has really pinned the Republican candidate into a corner. But what Democrats in North Carolina, a lot of places want them to spend it on is get out the vote. They had ads in 2020. What they really wanted was money on the ground in states like North Carolina. They want to energize college campuses, particular HBCUs, and the black vote in general in states like North Carolina. I think that's where Democrats want to see that money spent. We'll see where they do.
Okay. Now, Josh, Donald Trump and Kamala Harris both focused on tax policy this week. Trump promising to cut corporate taxes from 21% to 15%. Harris is proposing to raise corporate taxes up to 28%. And it's worth pointing out that they can make all the promises they want, but Congress has to actually pass any tax law, right?
That's right. And the smart money now would be that Democrats would lose control of the Senate, but would take control of the House. Obviously, people need to vote. We'll have to see. There's other plans as well. Trump is talking a lot about tariffs. That's something he could do unilaterally if he says it's a matter of national security. I imagine that if he is elected, he would be fought on that. Harris talks about expanding the child tax credit. She's also politically tried to separate herself a little bit from Joe Biden, saying that a investment investment tax for certain individuals should be raised in a lower level than what Biden is saying. But as you point out, this is just them trying to, get voters on their side. Whether it's actually implemented is really another story.
Yeah, okay. And Tim, finally, the Harris campaign's reproductive bus tour kicked off this week, and it's a reminder that there are 9 states, including Arizona and Florida, that have referendum questions about abortion. How is that expected to impact the race for president?
Well, yeah, and here in North Carolina, there's not a measure on the ballot, but that bus tour is rolling through Sunday and Monday. And on Monday, the second gentleman and also Tim Walz's wife, the First Lady of Minnesota, will actually be in North Carolina. It's been a big issue in this state already. The Democrat, Josh Stein, gubernatorial candidate, has been running ads nonstop since June against the Republican in this state, Mark Robinson. And so it's already been a big issue here. It's going to be an issue on the ballot. I think the question is how far does that rise up to being a top issue for folks, because it's clear that the economy is and almost always is the big issue on the ballot. But in a close race, sure, it can make a difference.
Okay, thanks very much, Tim. Thank you, Josh. Coming up next, Puerto Rico's political status is on the ballot line this November as well. We'll explain why and what it all means in just a couple of minutes. Stay with us.
Spectrum News Plus, news from a new perspective, dedicated to refreshing storytelling and empowering communities across the nation. With balanced reporting, providing real context and in-depth coverage 24 hours a day.
Here's a look at your forecast across the country.
Local stories, connecting communities. We are Spectrum News Plus. Streaming now on the Spectrum News app and free with your Spectrum subscription.
At Spectrum, we know that internet is a vital tool to help you fulfill your dreams.
My dream is to become a video game developer.
My dream is to get my online college degree. That's why Spectrum has affordable solutions to keep you connected. At Spectrum, we are committed to delivering reliable, affordable internet and unlimited mobile to keep you connected to what matters most to you.
I'm an ex-drug dealer, and I'll be your sub today. 2 milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal. A lethal dose is in here. Who gets it, I won't know.
It's cheap, it's potent, and it's profitable. The sad reality is fentanyl is being mixed into everything now.
More kitchen now.
You're not gonna get it all right. Just make sure you nail the big stuff.
Mama!
Like making sure your kids are in the right seat for their age and size. Get it right at nhtsa.gov/the-right-seat.
Back with the big deal. I'm Errol Lewis. The future of Puerto Rico will once again be on the ballot this November. And for the first time ever, the island's current status as a U.S. territory will not be an option. On the referendum, 3 options will appear. The first is statehood, meaning Puerto Rico would become the 51st state. The second is independence from the United States. And the third and last option is independence with free association, meaning the island would become an independent sovereign nation but maintain a political association with the U.S. But no matter what voters choose, the referendum is non-binding, and any permanent changes to the island's status as a territory would require action by Congress. So while the island's future is important to its nearly 3.2 million residents, it's also on the minds of nearly 6 million Puerto Ricans who live all around the country. They make up the second largest population of Hispanic origin, with concentrations in states including Florida and New York. Spectrum News political reporter Ayanna Harry takes a closer look in this report.
What do you love about Puerto Rico?
Everything. Everything. My island.
East Harlem, New York City, a community known as El Barrio. Here, the sights, sounds, and flavors of Puerto Rico run deep.
I love my island.
For decades, El Barrio has been a starting point for Puerto Ricans moving from the island to the U.S. mainland. With Puerto Rico's current status as a territory of the United States, people born on the island are U.S. citizens, but they do not enjoy full citizenship rights like the ability to vote for U.S. presidents.
We do not pay federal taxes, although local Puerto Rico taxes are extremely high. And there's a lot of other issues, right, that impact us.
And one question has dominated Puerto Rican politics for generations.
I don't know why, and nothing has been resolved about it.
Should Puerto Rico become the United States of America's 51st state?
Yeah, I would like it in the future. Why not? It's better for us.
In November, voters on the island will have a chance to have their voices heard. A referendum on the ballot will ask Puerto Ricans to choose between statehood, independence, or independence with free association. In El Barrio, we found overwhelming support for Puerto Rico becoming a state.
Do you think it would be better if Puerto Rico is the 51st state?
Yes, they belong here. I think it's good for us.
The seventh referendum on Puerto Rico's political status since 1967, the November vote will be a non-binding referendum. It comes with a $1 million price tag, and no matter how Puerto Ricans vote, there will be no change to the island's status. That would require an act of Congress, and previous efforts in Washington have made little progress.
The only way we're going to arrive at a solution is once Congress decides that this is an important issue to discuss.
A former speaker of the New York City Council, Melissa Mark Viverito, is proud of her Puerto Rican roots. After watching the island struggle for years under financial strain and the effort to rebuild after Hurricane Maria, Mark Viverito believes a non-binding vote is counterproductive.
It's a complicated matter, but what is clear is that the current reality is unsustainable and that what we want to advocate for is a transparent and fully democratic process.
Ayanna Harry, Spectrum News.
Joining me to talk more about Puerto Rico's political status is Ibeth Bruswal, an anchor for Spectrum News 13 in Orlando, Florida. And Ibeth, the upcoming referendum will be the 7th time that voters have been asked to determine the island's political relationship to the U.S. The last time this was asked on a ballot was in 2020, and back then more than half of the voters were voting in favor of statehood. Why is this question coming up yet again?
Okay, so I know we have limited time, but we can honestly do a 1 hour or 2 hour show on this. These referendums are a joke. Not my words. This is what a lot of people in Puerto Rico refer to when they talk about a referendum. Let me explain. This is nothing more than a poll. As you pointed out, the referendum non-binding, meaning this cannot be legally enforced. Okay, so past referendums have created a lot of headlines. Yes, politicians get in front of podiums. They talk a lot. They have rallies. They're shouting. They're screaming. And in the end, nothing substantial happens. So it's a presidential election year. And even though people in Puerto Rico cannot vote for U.S. president, and we're going to get to that in a moment, it is an election year. And a lot of folks who are from Puerto Rico live in the mainland. And so they go back and forth. And it's just a lot of people are saying is a campaign ploy.
Interesting. And so now, why is the status quo, remaining a U.S. territory, not one of the options on this ballot referendum, on this sophisticated poll, if you want to call it that? And what does it say about the current relationship between the island and the U.S.?
You know, I grew up in Puerto Rico, and what I'm about to tell you now, which is a hot topic in 2024, was a hot topic then. So as the years go by, so many things have not changed. It would allow the people of Puerto Rico to vote, as I mentioned just a second ago, for President of the United States if there was some significant move. Currently, as I mentioned, that is not allowed, which is why there is, for some people in Puerto Rico, not all, but for some, a sense of resentment toward the U.S. They feel some taken advantage of. Some point to the following: Puerto Ricans can serve in the U.S. military. Yes, they can take a bullet for the U.S., of course, but they cannot vote for the highest office in the land, and that is very offensive and hurtful to some. Becoming a state would also help residents on the island receive equal funds. We're talking Medicaid, Medicare, SNAP, Social Security, things that if you live in Puerto Rico, you get less of. If you live in the mainland, you get more of. So part of the argument would be, you know what, if it becomes the 51st state, you would get all of that lump sum, you would get more help, and people in Puerto Rico could be doing better than what they are right now.
Right, and you get 2 senators too, which is not a small thing at all. Now, because it's a territory and not a state right now, Puerto Rico has no electoral votes, as you're suggesting, and the island's residents cannot vote for president. Where do the presidential candidates stand on the island's political future?
Okay, so we have heard various things from former President Donald Trump on the future of Puerto Rico, or whether it should become a 51st state or not. Kamala Harris was just there a few months ago. I was actually in Puerto Rico and brought some of the coverage there. I was there just for personal reasons. It just happened to coincide with her visit. And I spoke to some of the people who are visiting the island and some of the locals. Even those who are visiting Puerto Rico, I spoke to a woman from California. She did not have flattering things to say at all about Kamala Harris. And she said the following, and other people also were criticizing the Republicans, just to be very clear. They said time and time again, people of high, political ranks come to Puerto Rico. They have lots of fundraisers, but in the end, they feel like the recovery efforts has that moved fast enough. Hurricane Maria, we're coming up on the 7-year anniversary this month, and they just, at the end of the day, the common denominator, no matter the party affiliation, they say not enough is being done for Puerto Rico. Why isn't there more help coming? But it's election season, so here we are with another poll.
Thank you so much, Ebeth. Okay, we're not done just yet. Harris and Trump are set to meet on the debate stage in just a few days. We'll bring you a preview of the presidential debate coming up next. Stay with us. Here's the deal. In this election year, people need a place to explore national issues that have an impact on their community. To understand those issues better, we're bringing together our team of local political journalists from across the country to break down what's happening. So join us every week to catch up on the key stories making a big difference across the nation and in your local community.
Watch The Big Deal with Errol Lewis Friday nights at 9 Eastern, 8 Central on Spectrum News Plus. Available on all of your favorite devices exclusively on Spectrum.
Give me one good reason why I shouldn't switch to Spectrum Enterprise.
Well, you said our services meet some of your technology needs.
But not all.
Well, maybe you have too many.
Demand better. And when they call you unreasonable, call us.
Look, I'm switching to Spectrum Enterprise because they'll be a true partner, and I can't run this network without one.
I think you can.
Our clients do it all the time.
Demand better. And when they call you unreasonable, call us.
I tell my son, I love you every single day. I love you. Now, my dad has never said that to me. Not because he doesn't love me, but because culturally it wasn't comfortable for him. Now that he's a grandfather, he says, I love you to my son every time he sees him. My advice to all the fathers out there, forget the cultural restrictions. They grow up way too fast for you to waste even a single precious moment.
Food is
isn't just fuel to live, it's fuel to grow. My family relied on public assistance to help provide meals for us. These meals fueled my involvement in theater and the arts as a child, which fostered my love for acting. The Feeding America network of food banks helps millions of people put food on the table. When people are fed, futures are nourished. Join the movement to end hunger, and together we can open endless possibilities for people to thrive. Visit feedingamerica.org/actnow.
With the big deal. I'm Errol Lewis, and we are just days away from the highly anticipated presidential debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. It could be the only time that voters see them go head-to-head before Election Day. And despite some back and forth over the debate rules, both campaigns have agreed to ABC News' terms, which include no live audience and muted microphones when the other candidate is speaking. Joining me now with a preview of next week's big deal is Spectrum News political reporter Cassie Semien, joining us from Washington, D.C. And Cassie, the debate will be the first time that Harris and Trump have ever met in person. And debates have played, of course, a key role in Harris's career rise, from the time she ran for district attorney in San Francisco to the 2020 vice presidential debate against Mike Pence. What should voters look for on Tuesday night?
Well, experts I spoke with said Harris really needs to stay above the fray in Tuesday's debate, meaning that if Trump goes after her race or gender like he has done on the campaign trail that we've seen so far, she needs to kind of ignore it, keep moving past it, and really focus on the policies, especially because this likely is the only debate where she has the opportunity to talk directly to the American people and lay out her vision for America and refute some of the points that Trump is making on the campaign trail. We also know she's taking a page out of Hillary Clinton's book in 2016. A Hillary Clinton staffer, Felipe Rines, he stood in for Trump to practice trying to get under Hillary Clinton's skin to prepare her for that debate. We know he is also standing in and acting as Trump in Harris's mini boot camp that she's going through right now in Pittsburgh, trying to prepare for this debate. So it'll be interesting to see whether or not she is able to stay above the fray and get her message across very clear, especially because Biden really set the bar low with that debate over the summer. Really, she just needs to come out, perform well, be eloquent, and lay out her policy platforms and stay above the fray. That's what I'm hearing, Errol.
Okay, so now during that June debate, Donald Trump actually told dozens of lies, but President Biden's poor performance overshadowed that. What can we expect as far as fact-checking this time around?
I don't think she'll rely on the moderators to fact check. I think she will do a little bit of fact checking herself. Remember, as a prosecutor in a courtroom, she's used to kind of weaving a narrative and making sure the facts are laid out for her audience, usually a jury, now the American public. But I also have heard from some experts that say getting too bogged down in fact checking your opponent sometimes can muddy the waters when you're trying to remember your debate talking points. And they warn that she shouldn't be too over prepared to refute Donald Trump's lies, especially because he doesn't really do as much debate prep as she is going through right now. He really flies off the cuff. It's a lot of instinct rather than preparation. So there's really no way for her to over prepare for what might come out of Trump's mouth on debate night. They said she really needs to just focus on her message to make sure she's getting that across to the audience rather than getting lost in what he's saying.
Okay, and I guess real quick, a record number of voters are expected to tune in. What do you think the main topics are going to be?
We're definitely going to hear a lot about the economy. That's been across the board over the last several weeks on both campaigns. We're going to hear a lot about abortion as well as immigration. It's a 90-minute debate. There's a lot of topics to be covered, but I think those are three big issues we're going to hear about on Tuesday night.
Okay, thanks very much, Cassie. And be sure to watch the ABC presidential debate simulcast on Tuesday, September 10th, right here on Spectrum News. Our coverage will begin at 8:45 p.m. Eastern Time and 5:45 Pacific Time. Then stay tuned for our Decision 2024 live post-debate special for complete analysis. And thank you all for joining us for this edition of The Big Deal. We'll see you next week.
At At Spectrum News, we're committed to strengthening the fabric of local communities through our reporting, with stories that inspire and news that matters. Streaming live on your smart TV and connected devices, plus on-demand weather forecasts. It's all there as you step outside with the Spectrum News mobile app, keeping you informed and in the know throughout your day. Spectrum News Plus, local stories connecting communities. Exclusively for Spectrum customers. Now available on your favorite devices.
At Spectrum, our workforce of over 100,000 employees are all located right here in the U.S. You can find them in our stores, in the field, and in our call centers with 100% U.S.-based customer service. Our team works hard to provide the towns, cities, and neighborhoods they live in with the reliable services that everyone counts on, making us one of America's most trusted companies. We're Spectrum, creating jobs and opportunities across the country and proud to be 100% U.S.-based.
Whether it's our stories, the warmth of our laugh, or our family's secret sauce, we all bring something different to the table. So make some space. The power of connection is waiting right outside your comfort zone. Learn how you can help strengthen your community at belongingbeginswithus.org/teamup.
Sometimes in life, in order to move forward, it helps to look back. To learn from the pioneers and trailblazers.
To gain inspiration from those who came before us.
To show us what it means to act with empathy and to show that love has no labels.
Join WWE and Love Has No Labels throughout the year in celebrating people from all communities and heritages.
Because when love has no labels, that's a love we can all fight for.